Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for the organizers, Brother Maher, and all the people for allowing me to speak and inviting me. I actually felt a little bit of an obligation to say something at the end of the speech of the brother, what's his name? Haris, just went on an outlash on Muslim scholars throughout history. So I felt that I'm the only Muslim scholar in the audience. So I felt the obligation of saying something back. But subhanAllah, if you look at what the Muslim scholars in the last 100 years have been able to do for the consciousness of the Muslim ummah, they have put a hatred and a doubt in the heart of every Muslim against banks, which is a big advantage. That conservatism, that reservation, that criticism, that attack on banks, how many times have you heard people asking a fatwa saying, I'm working at a bank, is my job halal or haram? Who put that consciousness in the minds of the masses? Who made us wary? Who told the people 100 years ago that this is not going to end up well? 100 years later, we see what banks have done to the world and to the world economy. And the bubble and bust, if you witnessed in the year 2000 when the dot-com bubble busted, 2008 bubble and bust, and then in the last one with the COVID and all of that, but it was also a bubble and bust. So the idea is Muslim scholars have done so well to create that doubt, and don't be comfortable. Take your money, invest it, do something with it. Don't keep it in the banks. Don't give the banks, even there is this idea, I have a saving account and I get interest. Do I give the interest back to the bank? The answer is no. Take it and give it to the poor, but you cannot deduct it from your zakah or sadaqah. So that doubt, that has paid well. That's actually the foundation of our meeting today. What are we trying to do? Find an alternative to the banks, alternative to the interest system, to the riba system. Where did that come from? That's from generation after generation after generation of Muslim scholars fighting, but there was no alternative. And governments are bending down to the world pressure. If you study historically the print press and all of that, it's actually way much more complicated. It wasn't the Muslim scholars that stood against print press that put us back, right, in historically. Regarding Bitcoin, right now, what we call the scholar of scholars, the scholar that we all listen to and call if we have an access to, like Shaykh Muhammad Dadaw, right? He has already come out and said Bitcoin is a currency. It's a thaman. Thaman means a price, something that you can use to buy. And if you've seen how much he went under attack, because him saying Bitcoin is illegitimate, it gained the trust of the people. And people say, but it's a number. And if you lose that number, you lost your thing. It's not secure. He said, and if your dollar has a number, and if someone steals the dollar from your pocket, you also lost it. It doesn't matter if it's virtual or actual paper in your pocket, right? And whatever people have agreed upon to be a thaman, a price, a currency, is something that they use, then that becomes halal, right? The Council of Muslim Scholars that mainly hosted in Qatar, for example, they have already come. You can Google that. The problem is most of it is in Arabic. And they're saying what we call al-umlat al-raqamiyya, the numeric currency, which is the blockchain and this and that. And they're saying whatever amongst these currencies, whatever is considered, people agree on it, that it is a thaman and there is a trust of the people and it's wired and then it is also halal. So actually for Bitcoin, Muslim scholars have not been late. I'll give you that. Darul Ifta of Egypt, of Jordan, Palestine, and Turkey have declared Bitcoin as haram, that you cannot, because of the volatility of going up and down. But if you look at the people who are not pro-governments, and usually governments hate Bitcoin, and sometimes they use the scholars that work for the government, because then finances will come out of the hands of the governments and into the hands of the people, which governments don't like. But even for this topic of Bitcoin and blockchain, Muslim scholars have been very quick, because also now we have social media that we didn't. Now we have YouTube. Everything started with YouTube, and now the information can reach very fast. So I just want you to know that Muslim scholars in the field of finances have not been dragging their feet. They have not been slow. They have not been just, but like everyone else, they have been observing. And obviously, if you're about to put $100,000 as a price of a heart surgery, would you go to a doctor and says, yeah, just give me the 100,000, tomorrow we'll do the surgery? You don't want a doctor that talks like that. So if you go to a scholar and you're telling him, I'm about to buy a Bitcoin at $100,000, he will tell you, give me some time to research this so that I can, fulfill your trust. So, dragging the feet is not actually, it's actually a sign of scholarly research that is done. Finally, for example, if we are talking about Islamic finance, and we're talking about, Islamic finance, if I'm going to make a blunt statement that I will not wait for the scholars, I'm just going to go and I'm going to do it, and they can catch up whatever they want, then don't call it Islamic finance. I mean, who says this is Islamic or not? In any religion, you have to go either to the rabbi if you're Jewish, to the priest, or to the Vatican if you're Catholic, or to the Muslim scholars if you're Muslim. But for you to talk about Islamic finance, then to say, I don't care about the scholars, they can catch up or they don't catch up, I'm just moving forward, then let's not call it Islamic financing. Let's call it my financing. Let's call it this financing or that financing. But how does it become Islamic if it doesn't have scholarly opinion? And this is, as you know, what we see, that everybody can be an expert on Islam. And when we disrespect Islam like that and disrespect the experts in Islamic knowledge, then we lower the value. And the same thing, if I tell you I read few medical books and I can give you medical advice, you will say, no, thank you, I'll go to the one who's trained. So this idea that sometimes the Islam is so cheap, and Muslim knowledge and Muslim scholars and this and that, and as you know, just like there are good doctors and bad doctors, and good surgeons and bad surgeons, and you can go and check their record, there is good scholars and bad scholars. Truly, we are at the end human beings. But how do you make something, how do you call this Islamic financing when you're not a scholar and you say, I don't care about scholars? So I think just I wanted to, rebuttal that, and I want to tell you, alhamdulillah, Muslim scholars have been on the top, and it's very interesting what Muslim scholars have been fighting. I don't know if you realize, but in the 2008, when the market collapsed, the only thing that worked worldwide, which should make you proud, is Islamic finance. What did Obama do? He gave loans at 0 interest. Do you know, in the history of mankind, nobody noticed that. In the history of mankind and civilizations, I'm talking from the Sumerians to the Akkadians, to the Chaldeans, to the Persians, to the Romans, in the history of mankind, the only government and civilization that gave 0 interest loans, is 0 interest-free loans to the masses or to businesses, was the Muslim civilization. You have to know that the only dynamics and economics that got America out of its 2008 collapse was actually applying Islamic finance, which is zero interest. And at that time, you remember when they stopped the options, which scholars at that time, they were saying options are haram, options are haram, options are haram. What did the American government? Did immediately two steps from the heart of Islamic financing: stop the options and give zero interest loan. According to the American law, American government should not loan the people directly, so they gave the money at zero interest and 0.25% to the banks, and the banks added 1 or 2%. That's when many people refinance at 2% interest rate and 2.25 and all of that. So it's at least be proud that actually what saved America 10, 12 years, 15 years ago was Islamic finance. And they studied that. And I know people that were called by the American government to propose a solution in 2008, and they did study the Islamic model and they did use it, but they didn't say that. I know people, I know not one, I know 4 people who advised the US government at that time about the Islamic economics models and how nothing will stop this collapse except using these principles. And they ended up doing something that only Muslims in the history of civilizations did. So let's be proud of who we are and what we did even to this country in 2008. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you.